From the world of AV programming and control with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. Hey, James, it's good to be back, and we have a great show on tap for you, for everyone today.
Oh, it's always great to be back, Steve, and I look forward to having this conversation.
So this is a little bit of a special conversation because it's one thing that James and I really connected over, and first time we got the chance to meet in person, even though we didn't live too far away, but that was at InfoComm a couple of years ago in 2021. And what we wanted to do is talk a little bit about InfoComm, why it's important, and also just trade shows and events in particular. And with us today, we have a guest who you've heard from before back in episodes 88 and 89, and she is Kate Adkins from Root Integrated Systems. Welcome back, Kate.
All right, thanks for having me back.
Thanks for being here. And one of the reasons that Kate is involved in our conversation today is because we put out a call out on Twitter asking for anyone who is a first timer at InfoComm23 coming up in June, or somebody who's been to several InfoComms and wanted to talk about the value or why they are passionate about it. So Kate, we'll start. This is going to be your first event, InfoComm 23, and tell us a little bit about what you're excited about and why it's something that you think is important.
Yeah, I've wanted to go to InfoComm ever since I learned that InfoComm was a thing back in 2011, 2012, whenever I first heard about it and first kind of got into the industry. So I wanted to go forever. This is the first time I've had the opportunity to do so. So I'm just super excited. I'm super excited to just be in the same place with a bunch of people who have the same passions that I do, to get to meet people, to get to meet people in person that I've, talked to on Twitter, like you guys. And I'm just really excited about it. And also I love the technology. So I'm excited to see what's out there and what's new, what I haven't heard of before.
Really cool. There's so much to share. And James, maybe you could talk a little bit about your first time experience, being that it was a couple of years ago, and what are some of the things that you were either something that you did that excited you, or something that you did that maybe surprised you a little bit?
So there's a lot to package there. So my first one, I have to give this disclaimer. The first one I went to was in Florida in October, so it wasn't your typical InfoComm. It was very scaled down right after the pandemic, so I was able to get my feet wet without being blasted with a fire hose that you typically get with InfoComm. So I purposely went to InfoComm to network with many folks, like Steve and Tim Albright and anyone else I could network with. That was my goal with the first InfoComm, was to network with as many members of the AV community that I could.
So I guess just following up on that, what it sounds like that's one of the things that Kate also is interested in, and what are some tips that you have that help people in that regard? Because it's easy when you know people, but it could be harder when you don't.
So my recommendation, you have to get out there. You gotta walk the room and talk to people. I know this from experience. Like, I remember going to one of the after parties. I walked in with a whole bunch of higher ed HEPMA members, and they all gathered. Nothing wrong with them. I loved hanging out with the higher ed HEPMA folks, but I started to walk away to walk the room, and one of the members goes, "Hey, James, we're all over here." And I turned to him and go, "I know." And they're like, "Where are you going?" I'm like, "I'm networking." And I sat at the table with Steve, And your wife was there too, right, Steve?
Yes.
Yeah. And we had a conversation. We talked about ESSA program and other things that were going on. Mike Kirchie came over, talked to us. And then actually David Bussett came over and actually talked to us. And like had a great conversation with him. And then I also walked the room. I talked to, like I said, Tim Albright. I went over and talked to Megan Dutta and a whole bunch of other AV tweets out there. I can't remember everyone. I think Gina was there and a bunch of others. And then I went back and, connected with my higher ed folks as well. But I broadened my horizon, I broadened my circle, and I made connections outside of our little bubbles, just like our programmers were in a little bubble. And a show like this allows us to break out of that bubble and make connections to, salespeople or engineers or marketing people. So it allows us to expand our network.
Hey, Dem, hopefully that's helpful.
Yes.
And is there, so from your perspective or from your company's perspective, do you have any specific goals that you're trying to accomplish? Anything that we could help with in terms of just sharing some insight or tips?
Yeah, so I've kind of given myself a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 rule for this InfoComm I'm going in. So I'm gonna try and find 5 different trends in UX and UI, because it's kind of what I do. I want to have conversations with 4 people that I've never met in person before, at least 4. I mean, obviously not limited, but I'm going to push myself because I'm an introvert and it's really hard for me to do that. So I'm going to push myself to do at least 4, 3 things that I can apply right now in my job. I want to find 3 different things. 2 things are just totally off the wall that I never thought of before, and 1 thing that's just super cool I'm never going to use, but it's just really awesome, and I just want to find that 1 thing. So that's my plan, is to try to find all those things.
That's so cool. That's really, I think others should adopt that. That's really great. And you were able to roll it off the tip of your tongue. So obviously you've thought about this a bit.
I have thought about it a lot. I think, I don't even remember, back in like February or something, and when I found out what I was going to be able to come this year. I've been thinking about it since then, so I've been super excited.
Has anybody given you any guidance or anything that allowed you to feel kind of warmed up for this?
Yeah, so Chris Netto has been, he gave me a few pointers and told me what to pack, which was super helpful. He gave me like a photo of his whole like day pack, which was super awesome. So yeah, just people have been reaching out here and there and giving me some pointers. Some of the guys here have been telling me what to expect and that kind of thing, and kind of how they do things and how they approach things. So it's been really interesting. So I'm super, super pumped about it. I'm sure you can tell.
Absolutely. I get pumped about it every year. So, and once you really see what it is, it's going to exceed your expectations.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to get to go to NAB way back in I think that was 2012. So that's the only trade show I've ever been to, but like, that was the one thing, like I went and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Just being with all these people and looking at all this cool stuff. And yeah.
Yeah. As someone who actually has been to NAB and InfoComm, NAB is much smaller than InfoComm in size of different things, because it was more targeted for broadcasting. Even though I will admit, last year, not the one that just happened, but the prior year, I remember being there and being like, I need to start going to this more purposely. But I really want to unpack a couple of things you mentioned. One, that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think that's awesome. Did you come up with that? Did you read that somewhere? Like, how did that come about?
I think I just kind of came up with it. I'm sure I've read people having similar, goals or ideas or whatever in the past. But when I was thinking about it, I'm like, I really want this to mean something. I want to make sure that I'm doing this right. So what can I do to get the most out of it? And that was just kind of what I came up with for myself, because it's easy to remember.
Yeah, definitely easy, and really allows you to hit a lot of different aspects of the show. So I never even thought of that. So I actually might have to steal that. And the next one I wanted to unpack is we know this is your first InfoComm. You mentioned that this is your first opportunity. Can you give a little more about that? Like why this is your first opportunity, even though
Yeah.
you've been wanting to go?
Yeah. So I mean, in previous years, I mean, early on, I was a service technician for about 7 years, and I mean, that's a position that just doesn't ever really get to go to InfoComm. Like, what's the business case for sending those people? It's a lot harder to justify that, and you're usually the ones that are, in the field all the time, and you need to be at the office when everybody else is out at InfoComm or whatever. So I never got to go there. And then when I came to Root about 4 years ago now, I was just kind of getting my feet under me, and then COVID hit. And then it was like, well, nobody's going to InfoComm. So and there were just some things here. And so this, I think, is the first year that I've been here and established that we're kind of having a presence as a company to go to InfoComm again. I think a couple people maybe went last year, but it wasn't like a big thing.
No, that's not, I mean, I kind of understand. I mean, InfoComm always happened in June, except for that 1 year when it was October. And even though us higher ed folks always sit there and say, hey, move it to October, it would be better for us, we know InfoComm's not moving. But so I always felt I couldn't justify asking my work to send me because summer's our busy time. We're doing projects and all that stuff. And then the first year, actually the year that COVID was going, that COVID hit and that was going to be in Vegas, I actually went to my boss. I'm like, hey, can I go to InfoComm? And I gave the whole spiel of why I should be there. They didn't even blink an eye. They said, no problem, sure. So I actually missed out on the opportunity for work. And then the one in June, I actually went down on my own dime because October was a bad time for us in higher ed. So I paid out my own way, went down there because I knew it was valuable for me. So that's why I went. But I find that interesting with your service position, because I would feel they would want you there at InfoComm and seeing the gear.
Yeah, I mean, at that company, it was the only people that went to InfoComm was like some of the engineers and the sales guys, and that's just kind of the vibe that I've always kind of gotten. It's like the engineers and the sales guys are the ones that go because they're the ones speccing it. They're the ones, having the meetings with the sales teams, with the vendors, and all that sort of thing. So it just seemed like it was never really an option. And I think also too, for myself, I've really, like, my own confidence in myself has grown a lot over the past few years, just because of where I'm at now. Like, they're just so supportive, and I've had a lot of good friends help add to my confidence so that I could ask for that kind of thing. And I never felt entitled to it before. I never felt confident enough to ask for it. But I think it is something that would have been probably really helpful for me back then. It's just, like I said, I couldn't justify it myself other than I really want to go. And I think I would learn a lot, but I can't tell you specifically what I'm going to learn.
Well, from this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I think you will have a lot to learn.
It's really, that's very, very cool. And it's always going to be a combination of what are you going to bring back for your team or your organization versus how are you going to grow professionally and personally. And I think that there's room for both.
Yeah.
How are you planning to schedule your days? Have you thought about that at all?
Yeah. So right now I have, I downloaded the InfoComm app, and I've been going through the schedule because I have an education pass, and it's completely packed and overlapping right now. So I have to go through and like parse out the things that, maybe I can skip or whatever. So I've been working on that. I know there's also, meetings and things with the rest of the Root contingent that I'll need to be there for. I've got a couple invites for some evening stuff going on so far. So been excited about that. And I did make sure that I put on my calendar the tweet up on, I believe, is it Wednesday afternoon, I
Yeah,
think.
Wednesday.
So I am definitely going to be there. Whatever I have to do, I will be there.
I've always found that too at InfoComm. The scheduling is one of the hardest things to combat because there is so much going on. Not even just on the show floor, but the education sessions, and then you have all the after parties where you can network with members and stuff. So yeah, scheduling is definitely a lot of overlapping. So I'm being careful what I do this year.
and we talked about, being an introvert, and most of us are. You have to almost go into a different gear for something like this, and then know that afterward you're going to pay for it. Because
Yeah.
you're going to have to plug in probably for a couple of days afterward because of being overstimulated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see that that coming. Yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna handle it, but I'm gonna try. I'm gonna
Yeah.
push myself.
So, as far as scheduling, a couple of things that I would recommend, and we're going to ask our audience, please, chime in anything that you could offer, Kate, or even others that are in our audience and in our community. But let's share some tips and tricks, and also plan that to be able to meet up. The Tweet Up's a great place to do that, and that's always very well attended, and is always a highlight on the calendar. Um, I I think that there's a certain amount of structure, at least for me, that I like to have, because I like to know that I am going to see either certain vendors or certain people at certain times, because in a blink of an eye, it's kind of like a wedding. It just is over. And so you really have to pick those times, and then also give yourself some flexibility for ad hoc meetings and things that come up, and also just being able to explore and have collisions with other people. Like, as you go to a few of these, it becomes harder and harder to walk the floor without running into people that you know.
100%. Last year, I still remember this. I was with Tim Van Werf. I was like, hey, let's go over to the Dante booth, or the Alternate booth, because they're doing some pretty cool stuff with Dante, and we also get to see Frank there. We were catty corner from that booth, like we could physically see it, but we never got to it. And then we got stopped by somebody as we were walking, and then we had to go to another meeting, and like we never got there. And even though we could physically see it, we were like maybe 5-10 feet from the booth. We couldn't get to it.
The other thing is certainly find ways to exchange contact information, whether it's business cards, electronic, or just taking notes, because it's key. Even if somebody doesn't have a card, take a picture of their badge. You don't want to miss out on those opportunities, because the follow up after the show, a lot of times, is really where the value comes in. Being able to really connect with those people that you meet, and take those relationships further.
That's a good advice.
Yeah. What I guess for our audience, Kate, what would you recommend, or what would you say to somebody who's thinking about attending? How would you encourage them?
I mean, it seems like it's just going to be just an awesome place to go and meet with like-minded people and find new ideas, right? So especially for, programmers, like what's out there, what's coming up, what are the trends that are going to be coming down the line? It just seems like it's just going to be so valuable, and I'm so excited for it. So I would say, like, just go ask for it, and you never know. You might be surprised. They might say yes.
That's
100%.
fantastic.
Yes, that's a great advice. That you never know. Have my suggestion to go on that, especially for us programmers, is don't be scared to ask the tough questions, especially when it comes with programming. It's like, well, how do you program this? What language and APIs and all that stuff? Because that's going to open up the doors. I remember going to, I'm not going to name them, but I went to one of the booths, and I started to ask questions, and they basically pulled me into the hush room, showed me what they had. And I was like, this is cool. Like, to a point where I was doing programming, line code programming, and this would save a lot of time. And I was telling other people about it, and they're like, if you find this cool, this could be helpful to many other people who aren't programmers. Now, it never really panned out to anything, but I definitely thought it was interesting. So don't be afraid to ask those questions because you might learn something great there.
The other thing I just wanted to touch on, I thought that you said was cool, is just the trends and stuff. Anything that you have an eye out for that you think you're going to see that that you're hoping for?
I think the biggest trend that I'm going to see is AI and automation. That is my guess, is that it's probably going to be a lot of that on the floor. So that's kind of thing I want to see. I want to see how that's getting implemented. What kind of cool things are going on there? What kind of, user experience can we create with the automation and kind of things like that that's going on. So I'm pretty excited about that. I think that's going to be the big thing this year, just based on what I've seen. I always follow it on Twitter, like all the posts from ISE and from past InfoComs. I always just, kind of sit there and I'm scrolling, at night, going through all the posts and all the LinkedIn posts. So that just kind of seems what this year's trend is going to be, I'm guessing. So it's kind of where I'm expecting to find things.
Excellent. Well, it's probably a good way for us to wrap this one up. And, we're definitely looking forward to seeing you out at InfoComm, and we encourage our audience to look out for Kate and also others that are in her shoes as new first timers. Give them a hand, let them know that you're there, be supportive, and show them around, because everybody needs a little bit of a boost and just the way of getting acclimated. And once you do, you'll start to fly. So Kate, how could people get in touch with you and make a connection? I know that you also have a new podcast or video cast that you're doing on YouTube. So share with that.
Yep. You can get me on Twitter, code_Kate. And like you said, I did just start a new YouTube channel. So I got 2 videos up there right now. I should have a third up before InfoComm, and then I'll actually be recording an episode at InfoComm. So that'll be pretty fun. I have at least 1 friend that's going to join me. So I think I can get maybe 2 more friends if anybody wants to join me. But that is called User Friendly AV. It's all one word. It's got its own Twitter handle, again, at User Friendly AV. You can also find the same thing on YouTube. So you can also get me on LinkedIn. I'm on both. So
excellent. Well, I must say that you've really put a great effort into applying yourself, and look at the progress you've made. So congrats to you.
Thank you.
James, how could people get in touch with you, learn what you're up to, and also connect with you so that they can find you at InfoComm?
That's great. So first off, I want to say definitely connect with Kate. She's awesome. Follow her new YouTube video podcast, because that's going to be great. I know I'm going to be definitely checking it out. But for me, you can follow me on Twitter, AV_James King. Google me, you'll find me. HEPMA. That's another thing, is if you're going to be at InfoComm, HEPMA is going to be there huge, where you have a 20x20 booth. Make sure you stop by, because I'll probably be hanging out there a lot. And we're doing some amazing things there at in a HEPMA booth, like the approved program classroom. So items that made it through our approval program will be there at display. So come check us out.
And if you want more information on the approved program, you can just rewind back an episode or 2, and you can hear from Donovan Monday, who spoke with us about that. So check that out. For me, you can reach me at Steve Greenblatt on social media. You can connect with my company, Control Concepts, at controlconcepts.net. And just always like to hear from our audience, more people like Kate who reach out to us and allow us to help to share their story and to get involved in our program and also help our audience. So if you can connect with what we're talking about, please reach out, especially if you have stories to tell about InfoComm. I'd like to make the weeks leading up to InfoComm all about trying to build community and get more programmers active and really get to understand the value of interacting too with other parts of the AV industry. So reach out to us about that. You can catch our show on YouTube as well as on Apple and Google Podcasts. And we always want to hear from you, so please reach out. That's what we have for today. And this has been Ask the Programmer.